Hi, my name is Kristen Stratton, and I'm here to share today a little bit about our journey through Early Start. I'm a mom of 3 children. I have a hearing daughter who's in high school. I have a hard of hearing son who is in 8th grade, and I have a son who is deaf plus, and he is homeschooled and is in 6th grade. I'm actually a hard of hearing adult myself, and my children who are deaf are actually the 4th generation in our family to be diagnosed with a hearing loss. But we are the first in our family to choose American Sign Language. So when my youngest son was identified as deaf, my older son, who is hard of hearing, had not yet shown any signs of hearing loss, because in our family, our hearing loss is progressive and shows up at different times. So my youngest son, who is deaf plus, he was receiving lots of medical intervention related to his other developmental delays and his other disabilities. And because we knew hearing loss ran in our family, we were also proactively pursuing audiology and hearing tests. And when he was around 18 months old, he was diagnosed as having a severe bilateral hearing loss. So our story is a little different because none of my children were found to have hearing loss at birth. I was not found to have hearing loss at birth. In all of our cases, hearing loss was identified later on in infancy, or in my case and in the case of my hard of hearing son, we were both 5 years old when we were identified with hearing loss. Even though I had a hearing loss, I never had early intervention. I never had speech therapy. I never had an IEP or a 504 plan. In fact, I never even had hearing aids until my first set of hearing aids was given to me by the Department of Rehabilitation when I entered college. When we realized my son was deaf in addition to other disabilities, we decided that it was going to be really important to make different choices. And one of those choices was to make sure that no matter what, language was always going to be accessible. So we made the decision to choose to incorporate American Sign Language, regardless of whether or not our children chose to accept technology, whether that was hearing aids or cochlear implants eventually. We always wanted to make sure our children had access to a visual language because that was something I didn't experience, and so that very much shaped my own decision. My son, who's deaf plus, has a severe bilateral hearing loss that's now progressed to severe to profound. When we were in the early intervention process, things were very chaotic for us. That's very common with the deaf plus experience. It's because navigating the systems, the medical systems, the early intervention systems, the educational systems, if you're transitioning into the school district during that time, it's all very overwhelming if you've never had experience with it before. So I had to learn very quickly how to parent this child that was very different from my older two. I had to learn a whole new system, a whole new vocabulary, and I'm also trying to recover from childbirth, trying to navigate my postpartum journey, trying to navigate sleepless nights, and figure out this child who needs a lot from me, and I don't understand what I'm doing. And that was a very overwhelming and uncomfortable experience as a mom. When we were in early intervention, we initially were not paired with a deaf and hard of hearing specialist. In fact, it was only because I got on Google and I searched deaf and hard of hearing programs, early intervention. And when I found that our local county office of education had an early intervention program for deaf and hard of hearing students, I asked my regional center, hey, why aren't we providing this for my son? And then we had an IFSP meeting and changed providers to a teacher of the deaf. That is when I realized, oh, there's a whole specialized team to work with people like my son. And boy, did I learn a lot after that. I realized that there was so much I didn't know. So I dove into books and I talked to anybody and everybody I could. I joined local support groups. I got involved with nonprofit organizations for families and parents. And I realized there was so much that I needed to learn so that I could be the best parent I could be. But that was really overwhelming while still trying to make sure my child stayed alive, stayed healthy, had all his basic needs met. It wasn't just about getting access to language or listening and learning. There was a lot of medical considerations and health considerations along the way that made everything a lot more difficult, but also a lot more rewarding when we figured those things out. We did also eventually privately hire a deaf coach. We didn't realize that we could have asked for that to be funded through regional center or through the school district until many thousands of dollars were sacrificed personally to make that happen. I wouldn't go back and change any of that though, because it was worth the time and money spent to invest in our family. But it's good to know now that that is an available resource to families, and I encourage any family who can ask for those things, because it is so important to have the deaf community and deaf adults, especially a deaf plus adult, in the life of your child.